Welcome once again to Cinemaholics, the major motion podcast, where we talk about the biggest and the best films coming to theaters and streaming online from the San Francisco Bay Area. Hey, I'm Johnny Gurney, the film editor for theyoungfolks.com. And from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he's a news and entertainment writer at Collider. It's Will Ashton.
Oh yeah.
No.
Nope. Not even. Not sanctioning my buffoonery from.
No, and I definitely Wait. Sorry, Will, hold on a second. Someone's at the door.
Oh boy.
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh hey, it's Elvis Presley.
I'm sorry to intrude on you guys. I know you guys got a Cinemaholics show to run out, but I thought it would be okay if I stepped in for a second.
That's okay. I don't know. Is John here?
Yeah, I'm over here, Will. But
okay.
Elvis, he's muffling in on the microphone.
There's only one microphone over here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you have Elvis in the room, he's the king.
Yeah, exactly. He needs the stage.
Yeah,
that's right. I couldn't have written it down on a Post-it any better than that.
Well, I mean, Elvis Presley. It's such a huge honor to have. I was just doing that a moment ago.
That's why I came by. I was a little bit disturbed.
Oh, is that like your beckoning call? Like that's what caused you to be?
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
Hey, you sound a little bit like Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, you do sound a little bit like Nicolas Cage.
Well, let me get out of here. Get out of your hair.
Hey, that's a little suspicious, Elvis. All right, he just left. I think we really disturbed him just there.
I had so many questions for him.
He did look like Nicolas Cage too.
Well, I mean, have you seen Wild at Heart?
Yeah, and you know what? He had a key to my house, just like Nicolas Cage. Okay, well.
Anyway.
On this week's podcast, we're talking about, what are we talking about again? I can't remember. I need something to jog my memory of what the movie is.
We're talking about Elvis.
Elvis, thank you. It was on the tip of my tongue. How could I forget?
The newest film from Baz Luhrmann.
The BZ, well, he calls himself the BZ, right?
If you say so.
BZ writer?
I don't really keep in touch with Baz Luhrmann for reasons we'll discuss in a bit.
He's your favorite filmmaker?
No, he's someone I don't particularly care for as a filmmaker. I have no.
It sounds like you have a personal. Okay,
I have nothing against him personally. I mean, I don't know. He might be a fine person.
We're also going to talk about The Black Phone, which is the latest Scott Derrickson film, where the son of Stephen King was involved in it, I believe.
Joe Hill. Yeah,
Joe Hill. He wrote the short story. But yeah, so we're going to talk about that later.
He produced the movie too.
He's a co-producer. Okay, I was about to say that, and I was like, wait, I couldn't remember if he was actually a producer, so I'll take your word for it. But yeah, we'll get to that soon. Elvis is the big movie of the weekend. Now, I do want to take, we've been looking at the box office pretty consistently on the show lately, and this is an interesting one.
Yeah, I was actually curious about this, so I looked it up beforehand, since we don't have a guessing game for the box office. And it seems like both movies are doing pretty well on their opening weekend.
I guess. I mean, Black Phone, yes. For a horror film that's not an IP, that it's not really something that a lot of people have like I gotta go see that. It's doing fine, 23 million opening. That's good. That's very respectable, especially in these times. But then you also have Elvis opening at 30 million. Now, I don't know exactly what the projection was. I was expecting it to make around this, but I don't know. I feel like it's one of those movies where they probably were hoping that it would make like closer to its budget on opening weekend. Like its budget's like 85 million, and that's only barely like a little over a third.
I especially in a pandemic, I doubt they were thinking this is going to have an 85 million opening weekend.
I think they were hoping it'd be counter-programming, right? I mean, last week was Lightyear, and Lightyear is still not doing super hot. It's only at 88 million domestically right now, which is abysmal.
But I thought they were hoping it would do like 40 million, like maybe half its budget on its opening weekend. Yeah,
like 40 million would be a little bit more of like, okay, halfway there. This is a little bit, I mean, for like big success would be like, oh my gosh, 70 million, like almost its budget first weekend movie like that. But I mean, we have to assume that the expectation always had to be a little bit tempered, right? Because we're talking about a movie that is 2 hours and 40 minutes long. And that is, kind of what you were alluding to. It's kind of geared toward older, the older generation.
Yes.
But it's kind of presented as like this weird flashy movie with hip hop in the trailer.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of baffled because, when I went to see this movie with my friend earlier today, I joked on Twitter that I think we brought the median age of the crowd down by at least 3 decades.
Well,
everyone
I was in a theater that could hold 360 people. There were 6 of us total. Sure. And I was by far the youngest. I mean, like the other person younger, like the next person on age to me was probably in their 50s. I mean, so I genuinely, I have no idea, like demographically, who came to see this on like a wider scale. This is Bay Area. Who knows? But I could see, like when I was at the theater, people were walking right past the screen and they were like, where the, what is Top Gun Maverick? That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, because
Top Gun Maverick, 15th highest grossing film of all time at this point.
15th. Oh, okay. Of all time, you said?
Of all time, 15th.
Wow. All right.
And, I think that's domestic.
Okay.
I'd double check that.
But yeah, because I was thinking about that when I was leaving the movie, because there was like a crowd forming outside the theater, and I was like, is this audience here for the next Elvis showing? Or are they here for the next Top Gun?
You couldn't tell they were wearing. Oh yeah, because they were wearing bomber jackets. So it could have been in like an Elvis leather.
No,
jacket.
but I feel like, for better or for worse, I mean, and I see an older crowd at the movies now. I'm just like, I'm assuming they're seeing Top Gun.
You assume they're seeing what?
I assume they're seeing Top Gun.
Top Gun, yeah.
Because otherwise, like, I mean, what are they there for? Fan of the Open?
Lightyear, Jurassic World Dominion, which is. Yeah. Jurassic World Dominion's at like 300 million right now domestic. So I don't know. I feel like it's going to finish out around like 350. It's not doing great. I'm kind of seeing like Doctor Strange, which is already on Disney Plus, might outgross Jurassic World Dominion, which I did not expect. I thought Jurassic World would do much better.
That's where you thought wrong.
Yeah, because I think you put Doctor Strange over Jurassic World, right?
Yeah, my initial projection, though that was
a good call.
Conceding with your initial opinion that, like, probably Jurassic World's going to do better.
Yeah, you hedged your bets, but you still had a point of view. I get it.
Sure. I mean, the big question is going to be Thor, I guess, and Minions.
That's right. And the reviews for Thor, I haven't read them, but I've gotten a sense that they're very high. Somebody I respect quite a bit even said that this is like a bright spot, and this is somebody who's not a Marvel like defender. Sure. He's a bit more on the like critical side, and he was saying this is actually like a bright spot in Phase 4, which has been wobbly at best up until this point. I think is what he said on Twitter. And
well, that's certainly true.
If you don't know him, his podcast is called Strange Harbors. I would check it out.
Strange Harbors. Really okay, cool.
But Thor, sure. I've been looking forward to it because I think that it's going to be like more of a summery kind of movie, a summer high that I've been wanting since Top Gun. That I didn't get from Jurassic World Dominion. What do you think?
I don't know, dude. I'm kind of over Taika Waititi. I'm getting kind of sick of him.
That's my worry as well. That this is gonna like push me over the edge on my Taika like dislike right now, and I want him to win me back. I mean, we're in this weird romance, him and me.
I guess I don't know. Like people are like, you got to watch Our Flag Means Death. It's such a fun show. I'm like, I'm sure
I started
it is,
watching
but
it's funny.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's funny.
Quite
just
funny.
Like. I don't know, dude. Like, I kind of want Taika Waititi to just kind of be like out of the spotlight for like 5 years and then come back with like another What We Do in the Shadows or like Boy or something smaller like he did in his earlier years that I really connected to. Now I just feel like, I don't know, he's getting overexposed. He's like the worst parts of movies like Free Guy and Lightyear. And I'm just kind of getting annoyed of him.
Yeah, it's like, imagine, I just want to see your face, Will, when they announce Taika Waititi and Lin-Manuel Miranda doing a project together. And it's going to be like, and you've been cast as the main character. And
well, that's the thing, though. Like, I feel like Lin-Manuel Miranda has kind of been like after last year, he's been kind of, moving out of the spotlight. He had a busy 2021, and now he just seems to be kind of chilling, I guess, or working on something. I don't know. But
yeah, I guess so.
Well, look at it this way. I would say, for me personally, if they were like, hey, here's your chance to see a new Lin-Manuel Miranda project, or here's your chance to see the new Taika Waititi project, I'm probably, at this point, right now, I'm going to pick Lin-Manuel Miranda. So,
wow, I would not have expected that. Like, not even 6 months ago, I would have been like, Will's probably going to give the edge to Taika, just barely. And so I'm kind of. What was the movie that kind of was it Lightyear that put you over the edge with Taika, or was it something else?
No, it was Free Guy. I mean, I think Jojo Rabbit was the one where I was just like, okay, this guy needs to kind of calm down. I mean, it started probably with Thor Ragnarok, where I was kind of like, okay, this is getting a little old. And then Jojo Rabbit was just like, all right, I don't know what's going on. And then like Free Guy, his performance in that movie, like, I don't really believe in the Razzies much, but at the very least, he should have won a Razzie for that performance.
Okay, all right. Well, speaking of awards and Razzies,
he should have had some consequences. He should have had some consequences for that performance, I think.
I think there's a performance in this movie, Elvis, that is more than deserving of a Razzie, in my opinion.
Which one?
Which one? It's a question for you. You don't know.
Well, I mean, I have a guess, but I don't know why you would. Why would you give it a Razzie?
Is it not obvious?
I mean, are you talking about Tom Hanks?
Of course.
Okay, I was gonna say if you're gonna disparage Austin Butler, I'm gonna have to pick a fight with you.
No. I'm not talking about Austin Butler. We'll talk about Austin Butler, but no. Elvis, which I predicted it when I was looking at like, okay, what the top 10, right? Playing the game. I have Elvis at number 10. And I'm still feeling pretty good about that based on this. Like, I still think that it'll have some legs and, it'll get, a pass like 100 something million. I don't think it's going to make double its budget. Like, I don't think it's making like 175 million, unfortunately for it. But I think it'll be in the top 10. I have it right at 10.
I forget
Black
if I
Phone,
had it.
I don't have.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if I had it in like the bottom 3 of my top 10 or if I had it in the wild cards. Because I'm pretty sure I had Black Phone number 10.
I had Black Phone as like a dark horse, because I think that one could, could sneak into the top 10 possibly. But hey, anything's possible because Minions: Rise of Gru, which I was supposed to see tomorrow. I'm not going to see it tomorrow.
Why is that?
I canceled, or I'm canceling on that. So instead, I'm not going to be. I'm going to be seeing Where the Crawdads Sing on the next day. So I'm going to be checking that out, and then Thor.
Well, why are you canceling on the Minions, man?
Oh, just like a personal thing that took precedent. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Not against the Minions, but it was one of those things where I was like, I don't want to see the Minion movie enough to like miss this like thing for somebody I care about.
Okay. I see. Like I thought you were just like...
I'm coming to visit you, Relash, and you just don't know.
Oh, boy. I thought you were going to say like, I thought about it long and hard, and I was just like, I don't want to see the Minions.
I mean, I would be perfectly happy not watching the Minions movie. I really like. I don't care.
Well, we have to review that next week, right? That's the review.
We do. I didn't watch the last one. What do you want from me?
You mean the first Minions movie or Despicable Me 3?
The first Minions and Despicable Me 3. The last of these things I saw was Despicable Me 2, and I fell asleep.
I actually thought the Minions movie, contrary to popular opinion, was fine.
Wow.
I thought it was enjoyable as pure fluff.
All right. Power to you. But so I think that'll be on the top 10, sure. And then Elvis, I think is going to be around like number 9 or 10, maybe out of the top 10, who knows. But let's talk about Elvis. Latest film from Baz Luhrmann, who, look, Baz Luhrmann, the person, he kind of confounds me a bit. I actually don't know how I feel about him overall as a film director, but I do know that he made a movie that is extremely important to me. Now, Great Gatsby, whatever. I watched that movie on like a DVD in a car, and I was like, this is pretty Baz Luhrmann, sure. Australia, excessive upon excessive. I couldn't stand it. And one of those things, the thing about Australia too is like I was working in a theater as a projectionist when that movie came out. And I remember being so annoyed with it, having to thread all the film and everything for like 2 platters because it was so long.
I thought that'd be a 3-reeler.
It was 2 reels, but they were huge. They were huge.
Okay, I would have thought 3 reels, but all right.
Now, Moulin Rouge. Moulin Rouge is a very important movie to me. Moulin Rouge is special. Changed my life. And, people, since I've seen it, have said things like Moulin Rouge is terrible. You should feel bad for liking it.
Well, I haven't said that.
One of the worst movies ever made.
I didn't go that far.
Everyone involved should be embarrassed. I don't care.
I think I have said that.
There is a popular opinion out there that Moulin Rouge is actually bad, and I don't care. People can say what they want to say. I love Moulin Rouge. I've rewatched it so many times. I love the music. I love the performances. I love the nonsense of it. I just love it.
I don't think it's actually really that bad. I just kind of get confounded when I remember like that movie was up for like 4 or 5 Oscars, including Best Picture.
That surprises me as well, because to me it's my personal trash. I don't look at it as like some kind of award winning, like, or award nominated. And that's the thing, is like my connection to it has nothing to do with like the play or anything that came before. I watched it when it came out. I was 10 when this movie came out. It radicalized a young John Negroni.
Okay.
Right. He didn't know what he was watching.
Like, I would get it if it was like Repo, the Genetic Opera sort of situation where people are like, look, it's not very good, but I vouch for it. It's a fun time. I like its campy enthusiasm. I'd be like, okay, I get that.
I have entire sequences memorized. The Roxanne sequence I dream about. I have Elephant Love Medley completely down to the word, the cadence of the voice. Like, I love these songs. I love the Elton John cover, and that to me would be blasphemous for any other. Even Rocket Man couldn't get that right?
I don't know. I mean, the only thing I really, really remember about Moulin Rouge is Nicole Kidman's Weird Dance.
Oh, God.
Ewan McGregor's Blue Eyes, and Jim Broadbent's whole performance.
So you forget the part where the moon comes to life, Will Ashton, and joins in the chorus, and you forgot.
Whatever. Who cares?
When was the last time you watched this movie?
Just admit it had to be in my teenage years. I don't know when exactly.
Oh, interesting. Will, we got to have a rewatch. We got to do it.
Pass.
A drunk rewatch of Moulin Rouge. The listeners want it. I want it.
Pass.
You don't know that you want it yet.
But, for as much as I kind of
trying to change the subject so you don't have
disparage Baz Luhrmann, I don't hate that movie or Romeo plus Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet's good. Yeah, you gotta do the plus sign. I watched that too when it came out. That was the first Baz.
I saw that one.
I ever saw
concurrent with, I think, is it the 60s or 70s one?
60s, I think you're talking about. One of the earlier adaptations. I mean, there have been countless Romeo and Juliet movies.
Yeah, but
the one we watched in high school was, it was like that era.
No, but there was that one, I think, because we were reading the book in high school, and then we'd like watch like a scene from each film after we read the chapter. So it was just like very jarring to go from like reading the Shakespeare text, watching the original film, and then just seeing Baz Luhrmann's take of it, like in proper improper sequence, I guess. So it was just like a bizarre way to watch that film. But I will say that like the man makes choices. I guess that's where I stand on it. It's that like he makes choices. I don't think a lot of them make sense. I don't really agree with a lot of them, but I admire his ability to be like, I'm going to make some big capital C choices in a film. And he has enough capital and enough sway at Warner Brothers that people are like, yeah, sure, you can make that choice. And he does. And they're screened in theaters worldwide. And audiences respond to it however they respond to it. It's just like, I mean, that's something, I guess. So
tons of Romeo and Juliet movies. I'm looking at them now. A lot of them are made for TV. A lot of them are TV adaptations. The one I was thinking about is 1968. This is the one.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, that's the one we saw.
The Franco Zeffirelli one.
The one with Olivia
Hussey. Yeah.
Hussey, yeah.
And Laurence Olivier. Yeah. It's one of the higher profile ones for sure. I think the other one, like the first one, I think it was the first one, is a silent film, but I think it's lost at this point, just like 1916, according to this. But I'm a fan of Baz Luhrmann's take on it. I think it's fine. But Strictly Ballroom is another one that I enjoy.
Okay,
I haven't rewatched it in quite a bit, but
that's the one I haven't seen, so I have no opinion on that one.
It's worth checking out.
But yeah, I was gonna say Australia. I mean, that was like his attempt to make like an old-fashioned melodrama, right? Like an epic, romantic melodrama.
Yes, very sweeping. Something that I would usually like, and I like Nicole Kidman and Hugh Jackman quite a bit. And it's just.
I just don't remember it. I found it to be very kind of boring and forgettable when I watched. Yeah, but he was like trying to go against his impulses there. I think like he was kind of trying to do something that was like melodramatic, but in the service of like an old-fashioned, moving drama. It just didn't really work. It sounds like, from what I can recall.
I remember like Roger Ebert was kind to the film, and I think he compared it to Gone with the Wind. You know, like was not in like a it's as good, but a sort of like it's shooting through that sort of thing. I vaguely remember what else he said about it, but that movie had its fans.
Sure, if you say so. A movie I know it does have its fans. It was, as you mentioned, The Great Gatsby. His take on the seminal American novel, the great American novel.
A movie that does fit his style a little bit more, like the style that we know him for, that time period, the Roaring 20s, Leonardo DiCaprio as an actor. I think like those are ingredients to something really working with the Boz, I think like it certainly that movie lends itself to like what Elvis is. Yeah. But I feel like it's clear like the maximalist approach of that is in the service of like getting you in the headspace of the characters and like kind of expanding upon the themes of the original, original novel of the same name and all that. But I just feel like that one doesn't really work as well because the main character of that, Nick Carraway, is not super energetic or unreliable in that respect. Like, he can be, like he's not like a perfect person or anything. He's a flawed protagonist, but he's not, keyed into Baz Luhrmann's sensibilities. And certainly Tobey Maguire's performance, I think, leaves something to be desired. So I just find that movie to be interesting, but just kind of tedious and flawed. But I don't want to get ahead of myself, but to me, Great Gatsby and Elvis share the same issue. The first act is the best part. In my opinion,
I actually disagree. No, I gotta disagree. I think the second act of Elvis is much better than the first. Well, actually, we'll not much better. A little bit better.
Before we get to it, I do want to mention the Get Down, the Netflix show that he created or co-created. Wasn't a success. I mean, I remember the thing with the Get Down was that it was just way too expensive. It was like $10 million an episode, and like nobody watched it. It had like Jaden Smith in it, Justice Smith, I think, and it was about like the invention of rap or like how rap became popular in New York. Yeah, you're telling me. I can't believe I remember that much. It was very whatever. Jimmy Smits was in it though, and so that was why some of us came out anyway. We were like, you know what? Turn on Netflix. It's time.
Sure,
but that was the last thing he did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just could not care about.
You couldn't bring yourself to care about that one. I don't blame you. Yeah. Okay, so Elvis is his latest effort, and that's the thing. He doesn't do a ton of movies, and he takes a lot of time in between. He tries to make it feel worth it, right? He spends a lot of time on these things. They've been filming this since COVID. Tom Hanks got COVID while he was filming this. Yeah. So there's that. It stars him. It also stars Austin Butler as Elvis Presley. Tom Hanks plays his manager, Colonel Tom Parker. Also in the cast, Olivia DeJonge, Helen Thompson, Richard Roxburgh, Calvin Harrison Jr., and plenty more. This is a movie that is covering basically the broad strokes of Elvis's life from when he's a kid in the 1930s, so Great Depression era, all the way up to his death in the 1970s. I think 1977 was the year he died. And so lots to say about this movie. Obviously, it's Boz. It's Baz Luhrmann. This thing is loud and it's weird. We've talked a lot about biopics on this show. We talked about movies like Rocket Man, Bohemian Rhapsody, Respect. What was the one? Julie Garland. I wasn't on that episode, but her movie.
What was it called? Was it called Just Judy?
Was it Judy? It could have been. But yeah, that was the one that was just like, a moment of her life and it had like flashbacks, right? We've talked about plenty of stuff like that, right? And in terms of Elvis, clearly this is one of those movies where, first of all, I do not think Baz Luhrmann is even aware. Like, if you came up to Baz Luhrmann and you're like, hey, Baz, have you ever heard, do you know the existence of the movie Walk Hard? He would look at you funny. He'd be like, what did you just tell me to do? I don't think he knows it exists. But at the same time, I did get the sense that this movie is like kind of trying to be a little different from like other biopics. It's a little bit flashier. The editing is more crisscross. There's just more flourish. There's more fancy stuff here. There's more of an attempt to make this thing mythic. In my review of it, I called it like he's basically taking the fable of Elvis and trying to make a fable of a movie in response. It plays super fast and loose with the story of Elvis. So a lot of the real life details are mixed up. The movie takes some turns that I can't say that I'm totally on board with, especially the way it handles Colonel Tom Parker. I hate the Tom Hanks performance. I think it's horrific. Every time he was on screen, I thought it ruined everything that was going on before it. But I think Austin Butler here is fantastic. I loved Austin Butler in this. He makes the movie. Mm-hmm. And so when you were saying before, it's like, are you going to harp on Austin Butler? Yeah, you get ready.
Sure.
I hate this movie, Will.
All right.
I also love it. Okay. I'm so conflicted.
All right.
I think that there's so many things here that I'm like, yeah, delicious. And then other things where I'm spitting it out. I'm like, this is poison. Get this out of my life. There was a review, I forget who said it. We're watching this movie, it's like being stuck in a washing machine. Honestly, I felt like it was like Baz Luhrmann was trying to make me feel like how Elvis felt when he was on Too Many Painkillers. I mean, that's kind of like how it ends up. That's why I don't like the last part of the movie. At that point, I'm tired. I'm worn out. And everything that was working for me was like up until we get to the part where his film career happens and it's like addressed in a montage. And I just felt like at that point that Baz is like gliding through, just like soaring past the dude's life. And we're just missing so much.
Yeah, they don't even.
I don't know.
They don't even show like Jailhouse Rock, which I found kind of fascinating.
They don't have a moment in the movie where they're showing like Elvis doing the thing that they always do, like in Bohemian Rhapsody, where they write "We Will Rock You." You know, like they don't do anything like that. Like where it's like, oh, this is Elvis is like, we need a song to do the big show, right? Yeah. I guess they kind of do with like the protest song, sort of. But
yeah, I mean, so. As I kind of mentioned before with my takeaway of The Great Gatsby, I just feel like I think I respect, especially nowadays, I think what he was trying to do with that material. Like I said, like it's more about like exploring the just sort of like excess and the depravity of the time, but doing it in a more modern sensibility and something that's very singular to him, but also respecting the text, which is basically what he was trying to do with Romeo and Juliet. I think in that film more successfully than Great Gatsby. I just felt like, I think it works for something like Romeo and Juliet because, like you said, there are, however many adaptations of Romeo and Juliet. So he's like, okay, if we're going to do this again, let's do it for a younger audience and make it hipper and make it weirder, but also like not moving away from the original text. And I think with Great Gatsby, one issue is that like there are like maybe like one or two other adaptations of that book. So it's just like it feels more offensive to kind of do that with that book, I guess, because it just seems, more disparaging to like this, key novel of American history. But I think with Elvis, the myth of Elvis has been so prolificated over time. It's something that I remember learning about in history class. Like, I can't think of any other pop culture.
We didn't learn about him.
Yeah, like there was like a day or two in, I think, like 11th grade history where it might have been like a week or so. Like, I remember learning about Elvis and his relationship to American history and how he like influenced rock and roll music, the changing of the tides. Also, like, the incorporation of rock and roll into, modern pop culture. And I think, like you were saying before, like I think the idea here with Baz Luhrmann is like he's trying to kind of take the rote biopic approach, but like put it on speed and do it more in like an Amadeus sort of way, where it's not directly from Elvis's first person perspective. We're seeing it from his manager, this sort of cold, clinical.
We're seeing it from the perspective of the villain.
Yeah, which I mean, I think is a more fascinating way to tackle this story for two main reasons. One, I think it kind of respects the fabulism of Elvis's life story, because like everything about Elvis's life is kind of built on these sort of exaggerated mythical ideas. Like certainly like he kind of built that up later in his life when he was like drugged out and like trying to get Richard Nixon to like make him like a, sworn agent or whatever.
Which there's a movie, right, with Michael Shannon covering that. They don't even get to it in this film.
Yeah, they don't even talk about it in this movie.
Yeah. I guess they were like, that movie already exists.
Whatever. But I mean, I think it's like Elvis's life is so larger than life by design, and it's so hard to fit that into a 3-hour film that rather than just kind of go beat by beat by beat, It's just like we're just kind of gonna respect his like whole showman personality. But I think the one reason I'm a little bit more favorable of this film than your typical Baz Luhrmann film is I think his style fits the Colonel character more because he's like this showman type. He is like this guy who comes from this carnival background. They go to great lengths to show that he is of an uncertain background. There's not a lot. He's sort of an enigma, and he's not someone who can be easily trusted. But he is someone who is prone to fabrication, prone to just indulging in lies and like kind of grand delusions. And I think if we follow the film from his perspective, Baz Luhrmann's choices make a lot more sense. But I think the film, like to your point, I think where the second half kind of has trouble is that it sort of tries to split the difference between focusing on Elvis and focusing on the Colonel character. And when we actually focus more on Elvis, it does rapidly slow down, which, after, an enclave of choices from the first 90 minutes of the movie can seem like whiplash. I think it's intentional, but I think that can seem like an odd like shift in tone. But I mean, I think those moments actually kind of connected me to the film in a way that I found the first half to be kind of tedious and excessive. Understanding what he was trying to do, but also just like not really being on board, just getting your kind of typical whiplash experience from Baz, just making choice after choice after choice in a frenetic, over stylized way to the point where it's like, if this is going to be 3 hours of this, I'm just going to be exhausted. And I think the fact that he kind of reins himself back by the end and finds some gravity and pathos and even some elegance in Elvis's story makes me a lot more sympathetic towards this style of a Baz Luhrmann film than his past few films, including Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, I can't get on the same page with you all the way there, because I think the parts of this movie I like the most are where, kind of to what you're saying, we slow down a bit with Elvis. We focus on him. There are scenes in this that are transcendent. Logically, they're ridiculous, and even conceptually, they're arguably offensive. Specifically, scenes involving the cross-cutting between Elvis's backstory, him being involved in a Pentecostal revival, seeing himself as a superhero, and then crossing that with like this early performance that he did. And like, to me, it's such a creative way to get across the mythicism of Elvis. Like, what was special about this guy? Because you can't just have Austin Butler on stage just kind of doing his thing, because he can't perfectly embody Elvis. But what you can do is you can edit everything together to capture the emotion of watching it, which is where I think the movie is extremely successful. And I actually think that his style fits. Those scenes work for me perfectly.
I think I'm not a fan of the Pentecostal scene, just because I think I respect what it's doing. I just find it to be kind of nauseating and offensive in what it's doing.
I do agree it's offensive. And I think the movie's not able, like, I don't think it's capable of like handling the nuance of Elvis and like how he appropriated different things. There's a fascinating movie there about the way that he ripped off these black artists that he was friends with and took their stuff, merged it together with his own thing, and made his own thing out of it. And it's a hard thing to parse, because like it's like, does he recognize the privilege of it? We're never really going to know. He probably did and didn't care because he was successful. And the movie, just my thing with it is the reaction to that, or like, instead of having a point of view or trying to like push back on that as like a regret or something, instead it recontextualizes it around him doing one protest song when Martin Luther King Jr. dies and when Robert Kennedy dies. Like, okay, like, it's so limp, honestly.
Yeah,
so I'm there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, what I find more offensive is like kind of tries to have its cake and eat it too, where it's like acknowledging that he got his influence from black artists and R&B artists and blues scene, but like trying to act like, oh no, he was like friends with all these artists, so it's like, okay,
and he was, but certainly,
the movie tries to like,
he still ripped them off.
No, that's what I'm trying. Yeah. Like, I feel like the movie tries to like use that like as an excuse, kind of like,
I see what
he's
you're
like
saying.
Friends with these guys, so like, is it really that bad? It's a good
thing that he did this, because it, no, it didn't, because like people don't know that Hound Dog started off as a song sung by a black woman. And like, yeah, I could see Baz Luhrmann being like, well, it's fine because I show that in the movie and laid hip hop over it for some reason.
Yeah.
That's kind of bizarre. Like I said, I hate this movie, but like, it's so hard for me to hate it because I still watch that scene is still so effective. Just in the way that it gets its point across, even though I find the point itself to be nauseating, like you said.
To me, that gets into like the Great Gatsby stuff where it's like I can respect what it's doing on paper and execution. I just find it kind of nauseating.
Well, that's the thing. Then you get to a scene. You get two more scenes from this movie that I think work really well. You get the song that he does right before they ship him off to the military, where he kind of decides to do things his way or whatever. Where I think that whole thing, I'm just like, I'm there. Like, I'm on the stage with Elvis. I'm feeling like the battle of that moment and the hype, the sheer hype being on that stage. And then additionally, when he's doing his like comeback thing. My thing is that like, we go into all this other territory with Elvis. We kind of gloss over the fact that Priscilla Presley was, I think, like, what, 14? Like when he was courting her?
I think 13 or 14, yeah.
Yeah, he was in his 20s at that point. This is while he was in Germany serving. And then the 60s, like 8 years or so of just like, we just don't really, like, we get like one montage. And I find that such a weird move because I feel like it's like blinking you'll miss an entire decade of the dude. And it's a very pivotal decade for him.
I actually kind of respect that choice. And I think it's because if we're going to see it from Elvis's / the Colonel's perspective, yeah, like they're so caught up in the moment that it's just going to whiz by. Like, it's just like it's such a like frantic time in their lives that it is going to go by in a blur. And that feels like it's kind of replicating that in a way that, like, when I was watching, I was like, whoa, are we really going to just like skirt past like all of this stuff? And I think it makes sense in that, like, even at like basically 3 hours, like they really have to condense the story down by a ton. Like, there's just so much about Elvis's life that happened that they just cannot get into. And rather than like just try to like do like a beat by beat by beat thing in a way that kind of plots it out in a, grinding halt, like plots it down to like, a more tedious way, I feel like doing it in the sort of stylistic fashion actually makes some sense.
I just think that like they kind of miss an opportunity. Like they do a lot of just telling in this instead of showing. They say things just like, you're washed up now, Elvis. And I'm just like, well, show us that. Show an example of like one of the performances he does, or show him just being like constantly embattled by the Beatles, or do something where it gets the point across. But instead, it's just sort of like so much of this movie is just like dialogue that it could have been done in a movie where a lot of other things are delivered more creatively. That stuff to me is like so basic that I'm confused. Like what movie I'm watching.
I think I feel that way about like the third act, which
that's why I don't
really
like the third act.
I think it really skirts around like the more chaotic, like overweight phase of like the very severely unhealthy part of Elvis's life in a way that I'm really kind of surprised, because Baz Luhrmann, a man of bombast and not someone who is of good sense or restraint, or anything that resembles like holding back in any way. I find it kind of fascinating, especially given Tom Hanks' performance, that he just didn't go into that really much at all, in a way that I think seems deliberate, in that like it's kind of trying to do in like differentiating the two characters. But I also respect that, like, I don't know, it just seems odd that they just didn't go into that much.
Yeah, and the main reason I dislike the third act is not really for that, even though I also am a little perplexed by it, even though I wanted the movie to be over by that point. My main issue is that I just think it then starts to become every other biopic. It just goes right into that territory. It's, he's a victim of his own success. They try to do this one angle where there's like a lot of like regret, where he's like in his own sort of, jailhouse, where he basically can't leave the country because of this Tom Parker guy. He's trapped. And I don't know. I think I already kind of mentioned that I think that the Tom Parker performance doesn't work for me at all, because I just find it way too cartoonish, and the accent really bothers me. And it's just, I can't see past that it's Tom Hanks, And I get it. He had a hard job here because like Tom Parker had a very weird accent, like no doubt. Like I don't think it was like an easy thing for him to get through an actor, but I think Tom Hanks always kind of struggles with accents, to be honest. And I just do not think that was the right casting. Like I think somebody else could have killed this role. Give me Stanley Tucci as Tom Parker. Let's go. You disagree? Oh, the Tucci would have killed it.
I don't know. I mean, so I'm kind of multiple minds on the Tom Hanks performance here.
You think it would have been Gary Oldman, don't you?
No, well, speaking of Gary Oldman, because I kind of lend itself to Darkest Hour, I don't like this trend right now where actors, because they're more famous, just get put in fat suits. Yeah. And take away from, plus size actors in roles like, I mean, if we're going to do like that, I would think like John Goodman would be incredible in this. I think if he had the chance to do this. But, I mean, I just find that trend to be kind of annoying. But I get that, like, in this movie, Tom Hanks is supposed to be this just grotesque, off-putting, bizarrely charismatic, but also just, like, resentful, spiteful man.
The same Mr. Rogers, that's for sure.
And that's what I find fascinating about casting Tom Hanks, is that, like, we really haven't seen Tom Hanks do a role like this before.
He's America's dad.
We've seen shades of it in like people compare it to like the Lady Killers performance.
Yes, Lady Killers is like the first that I go to.
And like there's a little bit of this in like the Cockney gangster guy that he plays in Cloud Atlas. But like it's really a performance that's unlike most others that we've seen from Tom Hanks, but it is playing into, like you said, like that American Dad type thing. Like there's that scene with them on the Ferris wheel, and Tom Hanks is just saying these utterly bizarre things, just like show business is snow business, and just like
that's another thing. A lot of the writing in this is extremely bizarre. This is a big screenplay too. Luhrmann co-wrote it along with like 3 other people.
But you have to like. There's something very apparently just, cynical and capitalistic about this character. It has to be on like at face level, but you have to also kind of understand why someone like Elvis would be drawn into this guy. And I think the Ferris wheel scene, while not perfect, at least kind of, I think casting Tom Hanks to play that part makes sense, because you need someone who is innately charismatic. And
sure, but I think there's so many other actors that could have been just as, if not more charismatic.
Sure, I mean, that's why I say that the casting of Tom Hanks in that role is just so fascinating to me, because it's playing into what we expect of Tom Hanks, but also going wildly against it and giving us a performance that is so uniquely different than what we've seen from Tom Hanks at this point.
To me, it reeks of we need an A-list actor, and
that could have been it. I mean, I don't know.
I think that's what it is, because Austin Butler, he's not super well known. We saw him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He was like not one of the main characters, but he was in like Glee. Like he was in, some TV stuff, but like he's not super well known. And this is his movie.
He's like a Disney Channel star.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He was in a bunch of Disney things. But that's the thing. He just absolutely, in this kind of movie, he owns it, but they needed somebody on the marquee, right? It's like, okay, Austin Butler and I think, Tom Hanks is like one of the most A-list, like get people to, especially at this demographic, to the theater that you could get, right?
You don't think just like having the name Elvis is just like a marquee enough on its own?
I don't know, because there have been a bunch of Elvis movies, and I think
but not in this way, like not theatrically in this way.
I still think that like for this crowd, for this demographic, name recognition does mean something. It adds legitimacy.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, I'm not doubting that. I'm just saying that like I'm not as convinced that that's for sure what happened here.
I'm fairly convinced. And yeah, I just don't think it worked out in this case. And I think that like once we get to like the last part of it, like I mentioned before, it's just the whole thing with him in the hotel, the whole thing where like drugs take over and all of a sudden he's having marriage problems and like all these things start to happen. And I'm just like, the rest of the movie wasn't really building up to this. It wasn't. And That's the thing. There are shades of really good things here. I like how this movie gets around Elvis as just a caricature, as a clown. The whole thing where Elvis is like a Halloween costume now, and the whole Elvis impersonation thing. It's a staple of American culture at this point, right? Like Elvis is perceived a certain way.
Mm-hmm. I think there should have been a scene where like the real Elvis is in an elevator with like a bunch of Elvis impersonators, and they're all like, something like that. I think that would have been fun. I think the movie needed something like that.
It needed fun, sure, but no, I
think the movie has fun stuff in it, to be sure.
I think it needed more self-aware stuff in it. I think that like once you get to that point in his life, the 70s, you stop taking it as seriously. And so, yeah, I think that's where Boz just didn't have as sure of a footing as he did in the 50s and 60s. That's my take. And yeah, like once we get to all the more depressing stuff, I just feel like there's a better way to handle it.
I mean, that seems to be the common opinion that I've read so far, but I just find that the stuff, like you said, the more depressing 30, like Elvis is 30, 40 something, to be more interesting than the stuff that's like kind of gaudy and like exploitative at the beginning, but I find to be kind of shallow in comparison to the more emotionally hefty stuff towards the second half, which I think is more a credit to Austin Butler's performance. But I also like that Baz Luhrmann has enough restraint during those moments to like I said, he's like, there is this kind of metaphorical idea of like the hotel is literally like jailing him in. He's like a prisoner to his fame, and also this contestable character who is just like holding him against his will, basically. And I find that stuff to be really interesting, and something I understand from Baz Luhrmann's perspective why he made that decision creatively or narratively. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I can see as terms of like exploring Elvis as a person, that's maybe not the most conductive way of telling this story.
Yeah, it's a weird movie. It's one that I think is going to be talked about a lot as we get more biopics and more musical biopics, and kind of examining the way that genre continues to change and find ways to be more original to get around all the walk hard jokes, I guess. I was hoping they would do like a wrong kid died at one point. No, it didn't happen.
Though the stuff with Elvis's mom is super weird in this movie too.
It is.
We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, there's a bit of an Oedipus thing going on here that I was happy to see because it was a swing. In terms of like the character writing, that's the thing, is like the style here goes so big, like the way that he does the transitions, the way that he stages the musical numbers. So that to me is the big issue with the movie, is like there's a weird imbalance between that stuff, which I think is really fun. It's style. It's something that I want to see on the big screen, to these really ho-hum and awkwardly written dialogue scenes that are flat, with very few exceptions. I do think like the Ferris wheel and the House of Mirrors, those are good examples of doing it well, because I don't know, they felt like dynamic scenes. But then other moments, like any time with him and his mom, I'm just like, what are we doing? Is he gonna have sex with his mom?
Scene in the bedroom with her is just like, where are we going?
Yeah. When he's just like, grieving her death, like smelling her clothes and stuff. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and then
right.
And then the colonel's just like, I can fill her position for you. Like, I can be your new mommy.
And he's like, turn around. I'm just like, well, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, what you doing there, man? You ain't my mama now.
Well, since my mama left me.
You ain't my mama now. I mean,
no, thank you very much.
No, thank you, man. Yeah.
I'm very conflicted on this movie. Do you like finishing it out? Who do you recommend it to? I don't know. I recommend it to people who take risks, I guess.
I mean, rarely do I really gauge the room when I see a movie, but like in terms of like the crowd I was with, I really wanted to just kind of like hear their perspective on it. I didn't get the chance. Like I didn't like, for one, I say during the credits during movies just because I like to respect the filmmakers, but also like I just, I'm not weird enough to like ask strangers what they thought of a film, but I would love to gauge the room and just be like, was this the movie you expected to be? Is this true to what you like about Elvis? Like, just kind of pull the audience that, is like 70 plus seeing this film. because I really don't know. Like, I for the target audience of this, presumably, you know, people who grew up with Elvis and love Elvis and, you know, have that deep affection for him and his life and the myth of Elvis. I would love to know if this is what they want. I mean, like my grandmother, huge Elvis fan. I've been trying to figure out, you know, I'm very excited to hear her review of this film because I have no idea what she's going to think of this. But, you know, I mean, I think the target audience here, I guess, is people who really like Baz Luhrmann and are excited that this is the first original movie of his. And
there are a lot of people like that.
Nearly a decade. I mean, based on all these people that like Moulin Rouge, I guess. I mean, and The Great Gatsby.
I get that, but yeah, I just don't know how many civilians, you know, any like non-film obsessives are really following along with the Baz Luhrmann career, honestly.
I don't know, man. I mean, I was expecting to be more positive on this film than you were, but, you know, here we are.
I mean, I think it's kind of funny, actually. But hey, that's the unpredictability of doing Cinemaholics. Let's play the Rotten Tomatoes game. Speaking of unpredictability, let's see what you can predict.
I mean, is that our final thoughts? I mean,
I would say so. That's all I had. I said last thing.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I mean, I was just saying that,
else?
Yeah. I mean, I do agree with you that I feel like anyone that makes a biopic at this point, like it should be a required text to watch Walk Hard and be like, okay, just know that like this movie exists and that if you play into any of these tropes, you're going to be laughed at by a sizable portion of the internet.
It's like, Elvis, what are you doing? He has to think about his whole life before he goes on stage at the International.
And also that movie has like a definitive take on Elvis in the form of Jack White's cameo, which is great.
Yeah.
I was rewatching that today. I don't know. Like I said, I like you. I guess I'm kind of torn as an Elvis biopic. I don't really feel like I like got a defining explanation.
Documentary is much better. Searcher.
Which one? I was gonna say there's like tons of documentaries about.
That's one of the more recent ones. It's long. I think it's like 4 hours long. I think you can find the whole thing on YouTube actually. For free, if I'm not wrong. Sure. And it's, much better than this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I'm more intrigued by the film as like a commentary on like the themes that I think Baz likes to explore, like access and the depravity of like pop culture and just culture as in general. I mean, I think that stuff lends itself well to this film more so than The Great Gatsby. As an Elvis film, I don't know. I think as a showcase for Austin Butler, it's pretty amazing.
This is a star performance. Like this could be a star-making performance for the guy.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he'll get awards consideration for this?
I think so. Yeah.
You think it's going to be a Rocket Man situation where it'll just get overlooked because it's coming out in the summer?
Let's see what happens with TIFF and Telluride. But yeah, I think that this guy has real. Like he's going to be in the conversation for a while. But we'll see what the competition's like.
There's at least going to be people championing if he doesn't get nominated. People being like, "How could you forget?" I mean, Butler.
I think this is better than Rami Malek and Bohemian Rhapsody. So
I would agree with that. I don't know if it's as good. I might favor Taron Egerton's performance.
I was about to say, I think it's on par. Which I think Taron Egerton was terrific in Rocket Man. Got no attention for it, which is tragic. But
I think these movies are kind of in a similar camp. Whereas, like, I think both are elevated by the central performance.
The big difference, though, being that this is summer. Rocket Man was early, like late spring, and Bohemian Rhapsody was November. I mean, that's what it
Rocket
tends
Man
to come down to, right?
It was like May, summer movie season.
Okay, I was thinking late springish, but okay.
No, it was like the same weekend as Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Okay, this is heat of the summer though. This is like June. Late June.
This is Warner Brothers' only summer movie, right?
That's right. They're putting a lot of heft on this, and that's kind of sad actually when you think about it. 30 million opening.
Just like the Colonel, they're putting all their chips in one basket in the form of Elvis.
Pay their debts.
Yeah. The irony there is I didn't even think about that, but wow.
Think of what? The Warner Brothers thing?
Yeah, because Warner Brothers is hugely in debt because everything they made last year flopped, except for like Dune. And this like summer, they're just putting all their chips into the Elvis basket to pay off their debts. Yeah. So
I'm going to look up again what their next film is, right? Because I think they also have DC League of Super Pets, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I don't know how that's going to do. I have that in like top 10 domestic. I think as a kids movie, it might do okay.
You have that in the top 5 of your summer movie wager?
It's in the back half. It's like number 9, I want to say.
In your summer movie wager?
Huh?
Oh, wait, sorry. I was thinking of Paws of Fury.
No.
Sorry.
Will. They do. Okay, so they do have "Don't Worry, Darling" that they're doing with New Line.
Oh yeah, I saw a trailer for that before. This
their next
looks good.
Their next big blockbuster is going to be Black Adam in October.
Also
kind
saw
of
a trailer for that.
Now. And then they have Creed 3 and Shazam, and then it's going to be kind of quiet till March.
Mm-hmm. I thought Shazam got pushed to last year. Is that coming out this year?
This could be old data. I thought Shazam was next summer, so I don't know what's what.
Okay,
I'm thinking December 21st.
Okay, I forget. I thought that got pushed back, but maybe it didn't. I don't know.
It hasn't been updated yet on here, if that's the case. But
anyway, that was a tangent. Let's talk about the Rotten Tomatoes game.
All right. Hey, as long as it's not The Flash, right? Okay, so Will Ashton, we have 254 reviews counted for Elvis. What do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is? Have you seen it at any point?
No.
Okay.
My friend almost spoiled it when because we did a double feature today of this and the Black Phone, which we'll be discussing in a bit.
We got Panera. They don't listen to Cinemaholics. They don't know about the Rotten Tomatoes game.
We were at Panera getting some lunch, and he was like, "Hey, did you see the Rotten Tomatoes score?"
Yeah, speaking of tomato soup.
And I had to be like, "Nope." And I'm playing the Rotten Tomatoes game tonight, so you better not spoil it. And they're like, "What?" And I was like,
"What's the Rotten Tomatoes game? Never heard of Cinemaholics."
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think he's familiar with the podcast. If he is listening, hello.
Hope the Panera's good.
Yeah, do you want to say hello to my friend?
Hey, I don't know what your name is, but I hope you enjoy the movie. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, okay. So the score, 72%.
Which what?
I said, is it 72%?
Your guess is 72. It is not 72. Do you think it's higher or lower?
Lower.
It's higher.
Oh, okay.
It's 78%. A bit higher than you thought. Now, it was 80% when the first wave came in. Not from Cannes, but I think like one of the first critic screenings. And then it dropped to 79, and now it's 78 after the weekend settles. So not bad.
You know who saw the movie at Cannes?
I think friend of the show Emma Sasick saw it. I want to say,
perhaps.
I'm pretty sure.
You know who else saw it? Cannes?
Who?
Riley Keough, or however.
Riley Keough, the granddaughter of Elvis Presley. Which you're trying to act like you told me this. To me, this is new information.
I don't know how this is new information. I mentioned this at least a couple of times. But yeah, that's the granddaughter of Elvis. If you didn't know, don't get sassy with me, I guess. Yeah. So, sorry, what was your question?
Audience score. What do we think? We have 1,000 plus verified ratings.
This is more complicated than the critic score because it can go either way too. 68%.
It is not 68. Do you think it's higher or lower?
It's probably higher.
It's 94%.
Oh, okay. So audiences are responding to it.
Audiences are taking one look at Elvis and you're like, yeah, you're right. He's the king.
It's good to be the king.
What about Cinema Score? Cinema Score could go anywhere, right? What do you think?
Sure.
This is Vegas. Like, this is their guy.
Yeah. B+.
A-. Ooh, Will, you're 0 for 3 so far, but let's see if you can bring it in for Letterboxd.
I just love, like, this movie portrays Vegas as this, like, sort of, like, hell port that their main character is, like, forced to reside in and leads to his premature death. And they're just like, yep.
That's right.
That's our hometown. Yeah, baby.
We killed Elvis. All right. Letterboxd. We have 33,000 watches so far. That's actually not very high for a movie of this esteem. I'm actually kind of surprised it's that low. But okay, what do you think the average is from 0 to 5?
3.4.
It's not 3.4. Do you think it's higher or lower?
It's probably like 3.6.
Say again?
Probably 3.6.
Wow. So you went higher and you gave a guess. And guess what? It was right. So you got it. You just barely skin of your teeth. Yeah, and I was quickly glancing, like friends of the show. Ryan Oliver gave it 3 stars. I'm seeing Kristen Lopez gave it 3. Corey Woodruff, I know, really liked it. Although he didn't rate it on Letterboxd. I saw a tweet that you're saying he thought it was quite good.
He doesn't put ratings on it, but that is.
But sometimes he puts hearts.
Encouraging and surprising, considering I know he tried to watch, I think, Moulin Rouge last year and could not finish it. So,
well, he was waiting for you. Kimber Myers gave it 3 stars. And let's see, I've not seen any other friends of the show on here, like people who actually been on.
No, Matt Donato?
Oh yeah, Emma Sassett gave it 3.5.
Okay.
No, I haven't seen. Isaac Feldberg did not give it anything.
Okay, I think he
no review, no log.
Did not like it because I think he posted his ranking from Cannes, and I think it was like at the very bottom. So.
Okay, well, I'm not surprised. I don't think it's not an Isaac kind of movie, I think. But all right, well that is Elvis. It is now playing in theaters, and we'll see how long it plays in theaters. I don't know. Let's finish the show out though with another review. It's another big release of the weekend, The Black Phone. Now we already kind of talked about how this is doing at the box office. It's doing okay. So far, it's made $35 million worldwide. Most of that, like the vast majority of that's domestic, which is great news. It's not a big budget movie. In fact, it's 16 to 18 million reported budget. So it's already profitable. And I'm not surprised because guess what? It's Blumhouse. It's Universal. They're quite good at taking low budget horror, and specifically low budget horror that people haven't heard of. Like people haven't heard of The Black Phone unless they read the short story. Most of them haven't. And I think that they did a good job marketing this. They did a good job presenting this as a movie people should care about. It stars Ethan Hawke as the Black Phone evil dude, but the grabber. I'll use his Christian name. But it's a movie with a mostly unknown cast. Ethan Hawke is the biggest name, and at that he's not like, he's not Tom Hanks. He's not somebody who's going to like bring people in the seats. But they still made this movie really appealing, I think, to people. Now, this is directed by somebody with some cachet in the film community. That's Scott Derrickson. And he directs this film with a co-writer, C. Robert Cargill, who used to be a film critic. Wrote for, I think, Ain't It Cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in my early teen to early 20 days, I would follow his stuff at spill.com all the time. So
same.
I'm always really happy when I see him credited on a project. I'm like, one of us got out there.
That's right.
Not that I was ever involved with Spill, but I mean, just the idea that like a film critic, podcast guy got out there, is making movies, living his dream. Good for him.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Scott Derrickson, he directed the last Doctor Strange movie. So not the Sam Raimi one, but the last one before that, the 2016 Doctor Strange with Robert Cargill. He also did Deliver Us from Evil, and then before that he did Sinister. I think one of the first movies he did was a short film, and then I think, Hellraiser, and I think there's another movie before The Day the Earth Stood Still. Terrible movie. But I think he did another movie in like 2005 that was like...
Are you talking about The Exorcism of Emily Rose? Yeah.
That's the one. Thank you. I was having a hard time with that one. Done a lot of movies, Scott Derrickson. And I think like whenever he's attached to something, I know he was supposed to do Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness. However, I think of his own volition, he departed the project to work on this. And they had already been planning on making this.
I'm a little confused about some of that stuff because...
Same, it's unclear.
I vaguely remember him leaving the project because he couldn't get into the horror stuff. But then they hired Sam Raimi.
And it's pretty horror-centric. So, I'm not sure.
I think my conspiracy theory-ish thing is I think he just... wanted to make this, but didn't want to leave on bad terms with Marvel. So
that's my guess too. Yeah, I don't think that. I think that they just didn't have a lot of passion for it. Honestly, I think it was a creative differences thing, and it was just like I just want to go make something original, and that's absolutely what this is. It's based on. It's adapted from Joe Hill's short story. Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King. Joe Hill is his pen name. And I think, for obvious reasons, I think that he's somebody who's always wanted to make a name for himself, independent of his dad. The last thing I remember seeing that was adapted from him was Horns.
I was going to say, I always kind of wondered if the reason why he goes by Joe King or Joe Hill is because he doesn't want to go by a name Joe King. Like, he's joking.
That's funny.
You're
hilarious.
What I mean? Oh, thank you. But
that is his given name is Joseph. Well, he could have gone by Joseph King, but
But people would still be like, "Oh, you must be joking." Yeah, I'm joking.
Right. So, anyway, I think he's probably best known for Lock and Key. I think that's probably like the show, the comic series, I should say, that became a show.
And did he do Heart-Shaped Box?
He did. I don't know if that's one of his biggest things, but that like was, I think, his first horror novel.
Yeah. And he did Nose for Ratu, if you didn't mention that.
Yeah.
I think you might.
I forgot about that, actually. So, clearly a guy who's been around for quite a while. I think he's in his 50s now, so he's a bit older than I think some people understand. But anyway.
Jeez. Putting him on the spot there. A little age.
Putting his age out?
Yeah.
He probably don't care. He's Joe over the hill. He named himself that. So anyway, this, like I said before, this is Blumhouse, and this premiered at Fantastic Fest last year. And I remember when this hit, people were like, yes, this is really good. This is like a really solid horror. You guys are going to love it. I heard from some people that was like, this feels like a South by Southwest kind of release that we're getting way early, and which made me surprised. I don't think they played it at South by, but I would say that it's that kind of movie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was going to say before, when you're talking about like the rollout for the film, I do feel like when it premiered at that festival and, got really high notices, I feel like Blumhouse was just like, rather than put this out in October and kind of step on Halloween Kills' toes, what if we kind of just do the traditional like horror festival thing where it kind of goes from festival, builds up a word of mouth, and then we'll release it, I guess in this case in the summer, and then, have that kind of word of mouth building up to it so that when it's released, people are interested and want to check it out, which I mean, at least as far as the box office and critical reception are concerned, seems to work in its favor.
I think so. Yeah, I think people like this because it's a bit no nonsense. Like it's what you see is what you get, basically. And it's the kind of horror movie where I think people will be like, yeah, like I just want to see like a lean, mean horror movie without any extra frills. That to me seems to be what the appeal is for this. And the fact that I think that, critics since it premiered have been kind of, championing it a bit. So not to give anything away, of course, the Rotten Tomatoes game, we'll get to that. But the story of this movie, like I said before, it's a virtually unknown cast. I mean, we have Jeremy Davies in this. People might recognize him from, he played Charles Manson at one point. I think it was the Helter Skelter version. And then we have E. Roger Mitchell, who's been in a ton of TV, like Walking Dead. But otherwise, like, we mostly have people in here that you probably don't recognize, with few exceptions. The main characters are this brother and sister, very young. They're, I think they're supposed to be in like middle school. Finney, played by Mason Thames, and Gwen, played by Madeline McGraw. And so they live in Denver, Colorado. Shout out to Sam Nolan. And they live in this like little town in 1978 where a child kidnapper and serial killer known as the Grabber has been stealing kids off the street, putting them into his van full of balloons, and then doing who knows what to them. He looks kind of like he presents himself as a magician, and he wears this instantly iconic mask. Probably the big selling point of the character, the posters and everything, is this sort of like a interesting kind of, I don't even know how to it's like a Joker kind of mask that also looks like a devil, like a gothic gargoyle sort of mask that's like shaped to his face.
It's like multiple parts, so you can sell all the different ones. Yeah, like the smiley one.
Yeah, your Happy Meal toys. You got to get, you have to get the different Happy Meal toys so you can put the mask together and scare your sister. That's what you do, right? So
it's like when they had the Inspector Gadget toy.
That's exactly what I was referencing.
Oh, man.
I had the Inspector Gadget. I finished it. I completed the whole thing.
I got the whole thing, too.
Nice. High five. Okay, so the point of this movie, though, if we can kind of bring it, is that these kids are kind of in it for themselves. One of them gets kidnapped, and the other one figures out that, maybe she can try to help find him through. She's always been having these sort of like psychic dreams. She thinks that God gave them to her. And so she's trying to use her visions to figure out where her brother went. She has to convince the adults in her life that she knows what she's talking about. Meanwhile, the other character is trapped. He's been kidnapped and he has to figure out a way out. There's this mysterious black phone that could hold the key to his survival because it's related to the other children who have been taken. So this is kind of like one of those supernatural movies. It's very Stephen King because it's one of those movies where like supernatural stuff kind of happens. There's no explanation for it. There doesn't need to be. It's Denver. Have you been, Will Ashton? Crazy stuff happens there all the time. I think this is a good movie. My crowd was super into it. I think that it's not very impressive. I don't think it's like one of those movies that had me thinking or had me like really reeling with it afterward. But it was just like like I said, no nonsense, good time in the theater. And I think that's what I expected out of it. And that's what I got.
I'm going to be honest and say I was kind of underwhelmed by this one.
It's a bummer.
Yeah. And I think that was because of the hype. Like, I was like really, I mean, I don't think Scott Derrickson's really done anything of like greatness. Like, he's even kind of just barely gotten into like goodness level of his work. But I think of his films, Sinister is probably the best one. And it's a reunion. Like, even though
it's a great movie. That movie sticks with me. Even though
C. Robert Cargill and him have been collaborating together on their past few projects, including Doctor Strange. I feel like this is like, okay, this is them returning to that Sinister sort of grounded route. And, they're also reuniting with Ethan Hawke, who is playing, I think by his admission, his first outright villain. I mean, he's played characters of like, complicated morality, but this is like the first time, according to him, that he's played like a complete villain in a film. And, I think all the stuff with him is a lot of fun. I think his performance is effectively kind of creepy, but also goofy. It's sinister, but, like there is kind of like a darkly comedic edge to it. I'm with it when he's on screen. And I think the lead kid is pretty good as well. And I'm also impressed by the ways that Scott Derrickson is able to have like this one primarily central bunker location that isn't really like visually that interesting in terms of its style and presentation, but through his direction, he's able to kind of find unique angles and never make it look completely boring when they're focused in that location. Like, I think that's a credit to him as a director, as well as the cinematography. I don't know the cinematographer off the top of my head, but shout out to him as well, or she.
So cinematographer is Brett Jutkowitz.
Okay. Well, credit to him as well. But I think for me, the big problems with the film, and I'm not going to disparage the short story because I didn't read it, but I think the script is unfortunately kind of wobbly here. I think they're taking a couple of ideas that are interesting on their own, but I don't think they really cohere together in a super meaningful way. I think what the movie is exploring with the relationship between like trauma and abuse and how it kind of manifests and how like it can sort of fester and linger in a small town. While not necessarily new territory, it's certainly borrowing a lot from the recent It adaptations, as well as, other recent Stephen King adaptations, to the point where I'm kind of curious if that's something that Joe Hill is proud of or if something that he's kind of underwhelmed by. I'm not exactly sure. But I just find myself like I'm appreciative of what it's trying to do. I think there's stuff in here that works. I just don't think it really coheres together in a super memorable or super effective way. Though I do think it is pretty atmospheric and occasionally pretty creepy.
Yeah, I think the atmosphere for this is effective, and I'm with you there. Like, I think just the locations of it are so like simply well done. Like, it really, they're not trying to overload us on the creepiest. It's not It, where we have to have like the super creepy house. Like, you just kind of have like a normal house, and that makes it all the more creepy, I think. I appreciate how the movie shows restraint with the villain. It doesn't do too much with him. It kind of keeps him like out of the movie for big stretches, and that only makes it tense because you're like, he could pop out at any time. If I had an issue, I do think that the movie doesn't do a great job of explaining how he gets away with this. Just like people would know about the van at some point, and he always just seems really lucky when it comes to like grabbing people without anybody being around. So there were a couple of things there. I think this was missing like a third act surprise that would have been good. But it kind of like makes too obvious something that happens.
You say that, but I think there's something involving a sort of conspiracy theory nut.
Well, that's what I was referencing. That I was like, that's not really a surprise. It's
no, but I think it's pretty funny. Like how it's
funny. It's darkly comedic, sure.
Well, yeah, of course, but I think it's still funny. Like it's on like the one. It's a funny reveal, and it's funny how it plays out with his character. I think.
I like how this is just operates in its own universe where just some people have like some kind of supernatural connection to something, and it's played up as something that's not super uncommon. I kind of like that. I was like, huh, like it got me thinking about where the movie was coming from. I think I like the message of the movie a lot, and the way it tells it. It's sort of being like, all right, at a certain point, like you need to, like, no one's coming to help you. And if they do, they're probably going to be too late. You need to figure this out on your own, and just like not sit around and just sort of like feel sorry for yourself. And like, I don't think it's like a great character study or anything. I think this kid is just like a kid. He just wants to like live his life and not have to, but I think there's like a cynicism to it that rang true to me, where it was like, when you're in a tough situation, like relying on other people, sometimes you kind of have to be proactive, and it's a sad truth, but it's one that, is certainly one that had me thinking, I guess. It wasn't something I was expecting in this kind of movie, because like usually like you have like a damsel in distress character and they're just sort of like, the goal is to survive. And this one, it was a little bit more complicated than that. And I kind of liked that. And I kind of liked the weirdness of it, and like, what he has to do, because he has to rely on people at a certain point, but he had to also think for himself. And I don't know. I like how they handle that overall.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not really like against the movie in any particular way. I just find myself sort of underwhelmed, because I think there's stuff in there that's intriguing. I think I like that Scott Derrickson's kind of going back to something smaller like this. I think it plays to his strengths better as a filmmaker, but I also don't really think he's maybe strong enough to really make this sing on that restraint that you're talking about. Like, I think someone like, and I'm sure you're going to disagree with this, but it's fine. Like, I think something like Split is able to pull this off a little bit more effectively, because I think M. Night Shyamalan is a little bit more savvy, a little bit more self-aware, a little bit goofier as a filmmaker to pull off this type of concept better. Not perfectly, but better, in a way that I think is more effective in terms of balancing the dark comedy and the actual horror elements of it. But I respect that this movie isn't really going for dark comedy for most of it. Like, it is playing a fairly contemplative, lean, like you said, sort of no frills, tightly wound type of horror movie. But at the same time, if that's the case, I feel like there is like this kind of these loose threads that don't fully connect to it in a super profound or meaningful way overall.
Let's talk about the Ethan Hawke character, because I can't say enough good things about it.
Best thing about it.
I think I love the mask. I love that he's kind of striking back to like these evil sort of like silent film villains. I think one that's been referenced is Lon Chaney's character from London After Midnight. A few people have pointed out that like the design, kind of how he carries himself, is very reminiscent of that film from the 1920s. And I think the reason that it works as well as it does is that the grabber himself, like, I feel like the movie is like unafraid to make him out to be a real person, and not just this sort of like Pennywise, like unstoppable force of nature, but to give, a set of rules that make sense with him, that like allow the audience to sort of understand what's at stake, how he's a character who can be defeated, but you have to like, outsmart him. Like, there are things about that villain that it makes it more terrifying to me, because it's more plausible, I guess. This has always been my issue with like the It movies and a lot of Stephen King things in general. I just always feel like the villains feel so insurmountable and overwhelming, and never sort of like down to earth. Whereas I don't get that sense, and I haven't read the short story, so I don't know how much this tracks with Joe Hill's short story, but I just get the sense that this is a little bit more like, like Horns, actually. Like Horns, to me, the one thing that I really like about that is that the supernatural stuff is carried more by the protagonists of the movie. And I think that's always so super fun, of like to put that into their hands, and the villains are like the normal people. So I like that. And I think Ethan Hawke in this is just, you could just tell he's loving this. He's just like, I love acting. I act because I must. Like, this is him the entire movie.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm glad that you brought up the like silent film thing, because I was thinking of I think it's called The Man Who Laughs, the German expressionist film. Like, I haven't seen it, but I've seen like the stills from it, and that like creepy smiling face seems to be a direct inspiration for at least one of the masks in this film.
Yeah, because the smile, like when you look at the smile from that, it's like half the face. It's kind of like the origin of the Joker smile in the movies. Arguably,
probably. I don't know if that was a direct inspiration, but something I thought about. Well,
I don't think it was direct inspiration to the comics, but I think it was to like the 80s version of Batman. I meant with the Batman comics got serious, and you mean on this movie?
In this movie, not the Joker. Okay. Yeah. But in any case, I mean, that's good to know. Fun fact for Joker trivia night when I'm at the bar.
You're going to be well prepared. That's right.
But yeah, I mean, Ethan Hawke, like I said, it seems like he's really relishing this opportunity in his career where he seems to be more director focused for the most part. I mean, I know he still does stuff like Moon Knight and all that, but like it seems like for the most part he seems to be wanting to work with like auteur filmmakers or like filmmakers he trusts, filmmakers that like seem to like want to push him in different ways as an actor. And I think he's developed a trust with Scott Derrickson between Sinister and this film where, like they seem to play well with each other. I think certainly I don't think that he's doing like Ethan Hawke's best work, but I think Scott Derrickson gets his best work when he gets to work with Ethan Hawke. And yeah, I mean, I think his performance has the Poochie effect where every time Ethan Hawke's on screen, I'm kind of wondering like, where's Ethan Hawke? I would like to see him again, though. I mean, I think he's also effectively, creepy, and I'm like, this is bad news for these kids when he's around, but it's such a magnetic performance and, distinctly different from what we've seen from Ethan Hawke. So exciting stuff to see.
Agreed. But for me, I think Madeline McGraw, I think she is like such a great character in this. I think she's where the movie kind of comes together for me. She's super funny and she's super engaging. I think she's a more interesting protagonist.
Is that the sister?
Yes.
Okay.
There aren't a lot of other female characters in the movie.
That's a good point. I didn't really think about that.
Who else would I be talking about? Not a lot of female characters in this. I think she's like the main one. But she to me, like whenever she was on screen, I just got the sense that she was just like, I don't know, very... I got the sense like this is going to be a big star someday, because I know she's done a lot of voice work. I think like she's done a couple Pixar things, Mitchell's vs. the Machines, and some like small roles here and there. But I was really impressed with this performance from her, more so than Mason Thames, who plays the main kid, but not by a lot. I think he was okay as well. It was an interesting performance. It was very like subdued, kind of what it needed to be, I guess.
I think I don't remember these kids' names, unfortunately, but the sister I think is more charismatic, but I think the main kid is like giving the
more of a straight man. Yeah, he's just kind of yeah. She's a little bit more of like, she has a very iconic line in this, like, Jesus, what the
I don't know, I wasn't really as charmed by kids who swear bits, but
I think the randomness is what made it work for me. It's hilarious.
You mean like in the way that like kids know swear words, but they don't like really know how to use them yet?
I think for her, it's just like her frustration and like the way it's written and the way she brings it out. I don't know. It had the audience really reacting to it, which I think is what they wanted. So,
I mean, I think her scene with like her, not a comedic scene at all, but the scene where with
dad?
I think that was like, and then the scene afterward with her brother, I think are really effective. I think those are two of the better, if certainly harder to watch.
It's not often enough we see such functional relationships between siblings, like functional in the sense of like, just like
at least not
an
brother
innocent,
and sister, I guess,
super caring relationship that, where they're not fighting a ton or anything like that.
I mean, like they even go to the point of saying like they're more like friends than siblings in this movie, which is, kind of making it apparent. But yeah, I mean,
good, however you want to describe it.
Good kid performances, not a good kid performances from some of the other kids in this film.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Some of the other kids in this are pretty laughably bad, but they're not on screen much, so it's not really.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad because he's like so crucial to like kind of the emotional narrative of the film. But like, what's his name? The like kind of like long hair kid that like,
Robbie.
He's fighting. Is it Robbie?
I think that was his name.
I mean, he's unfortunately not very good. Sorry, kid, but like, Not a great performance from that guy.
He's not in it that much, so it's fine. All right. I like the movie. You didn't like the movie much. Let's play the Rotten Tomatoes
I'm okay with it. I don't know. I was just underwhelmed.
Okay.
I don't know.
You're allowed to be. Rotten Tomatoes, we have 162 reviews counted. What do you think the critic score is?
It's high, probably like 93%.
It's lower, but I'm going to give you another shot. It's lower. How how do you think?
86%.
Close. Good second guess. 85. Pretty close. 85%, which I think that sounds about right. There's going to be some people who watch this and are like, I don't care. And other people who are like, I like it a lot. I guess like us. All right, audience score. We have 1,000 plus verified ratings. What do you think?
88.
It's not 88. Do you think it's higher or lower?
Probably lower. Is it 84?
No, it's 90. You did not believe in the grabber's skills. All right, what about cinema score? What do you think the folks in Vegas said? I mean, they had just saw Elvis. Maybe they were tired when they saw this. Who knows?
I mean, that's my experience. I mean, I saw these two back to back.
That's true. What a weird double feature.
I mean, not by choice. Just the way my schedule, I guess, worked out. I'm going to say I'm going to do B+ again.
Nice. It's a B+. I was worried you were going to lowball it. But yes, B+. Not everybody's into it. Not everybody's answering the call. That's for sure. Okay, Letterboxd.
Call. Ghostbusters.
Okay, you're having fun. All right, so we have 32,000 logged on Letterboxd. That's kind of interesting considering that's right by Elvis. And it's like it has a higher critic score, slightly lower audience score, and around the same Letterboxd logs. But what do you think of the average score, Rosh, in 0 to 5?
On Letterboxd?
That's right.
3.5?
It's 3.6. Same exact as Elvis. How about that? And I think the difference too is like when we were looking at Elvis, a lot of people had it like 3 stars for Elvis, not a ton of super low, super high. And this one, it's all over the place. Like, Chris Evangelista, a friend of the show, is like 3.5. I'm seeing 4s. Kimber Myers gave it a 3. Clint Worthington gave it a 2. Kristen gave it a 2. But I'm seeing 4s. Like Emma Sasek gave it 3.5. I think people like it, but it's just not everybody's feeling not everybody's ringtones matching this one. I guess Matt Billington gave it 4. Wow. Matt Donato gave it 4. Look at that. I think these are the Fantastic Fest folks. Charlie Ridgely, I almost missed him. He gave it 4. Mm-hmm. So we got a lot of 4s and 3.5s, but Will, I guess you're closer to probably like the 2s, 2.5, whatever.
Somewhere between 2.5 and 3. I feel like I'm on that side for both these movies this week, not by choice. It just kind of worked out that way.
And that'll do it for our episode of Cinemaholics. Next week, I guess we're talking about the Minions. I guess.
I mean, what else is there to talk about? Is there another choice?
Probably something on streaming that I'm forgetting about. I mean, there's Marcel the Shell, which, hit limited this past weekend. We could always get to that because I loved Marcel the Shell. And you couldn't watch it this weekend. It's not in Pittsburgh yet.
Yeah, it wasn't available for me. Are you like warming up to that movie? Because I thought you were more like lukewarm on it when
I've been liking it the more I've been thinking about it. Like when I wrote my review for it, I watched the trailer again and I was like, man, I think I really, really liked it. Like, I think it's just sat with me. Like, I still think about it. It had an effect. There's also The Princess, which is going to be on Hulu.
So
there's a few things.
Mr. Malcolm's List.
Oh yeah, the Bleecker Street thing.
Sure.
I didn't have that on my radar. I don't know if a lot of people are going to expect us to check it out.
There's
The Forgiven is the other one with Ray Fiennes, Jessica Chastain. And
that's
Matt Smith. I think?
What's John
Michael McDonagh. Yeah,
McDonagh. Yeah. I heard that's pretty good. There's a Louis C.K. film, 4th of July.
Okay. All right.
I was looking up to see if Marcel the Shell was playing near me. Did you know that the Minions is playing in IMAX?
Is that weird?
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know. I mean, what warrants like it's IMAX and Dolby?
Yeah, it's a higher ticket price, and they know kids are going to go see it. That's what it is.
But like, what advantage is there to seeing this in IMAX?
The price of the ticket, and then making more money
to the audience. No, I mean I get from like a theater standpoint.
This is the showtime that's most convenient, and it's IMAX, so they'll be willing to pay more.
Yeah, I guess so. And you're taking family, so you have to like all four of you have to see it or whatever.
Right.
4 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to make money, I think. But reviews have not been kind so far. I won't give away.
Oh, really?
Well, I won't give it away, but I have seen some negative reviews. I don't know what the Rotten Tomato score is yet, but I have been seeing people be like, forget this.
People respond to the Minions the way that I responded to Taika Waititi earlier in this episode. They're just like, I'm getting sick of this. Getting tired of this.
I was there with the first Despicable Me, I'm just going to say. But okay, that's it for us this week on Cinemaholics. We'll be back next week. Thank you as always for listening. From the Internet California, I'm John Negroni.
And from the Internet Pennsylvania, I'm Wes.
See you next time.
See ya. Bye-bye.